May I speak in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Do please take your seats. Whilst I have the pleasure of welcoming you here as the vicar, I want to extend my thanks to Mr. Belbin, the governors, and Mr. Crawford for inviting me to speak to you today. Thank you. I think that's rather brave of you. You have no idea what I'm going to do you? Could all go wrong, I might not be back next year for your 400th celebration. I don't know if this is a good example to use, but are any of you familiar with the TV programme Room 101? Is that a generational thing? Do I need to explain that? Room 101 is a TV programme where celebrities go and meet with a host and they talk about their pet peeves, the things that most irritate them. And if the host agrees, or the audience agrees, that their pet peeve is worth it, then the peeve goes into Room 101 and is destroyed and gotten rid of. I'd like to share, if I might, with you my top three pet peeves. This is where I get a bit personal, and you might think it's a little ridiculous. No, so number one pet peeve for the Reverend Philip Howson. Young men who walk around the streets bare-chested in the summer. Cannot bear it. I hope that no one here does that too. If that's you, I'm sorry, but that's my pet peeve. That's going into Room 101 for me. Number two, this is a bit of an old man's pet peeve. People who reverse out of their drives onto main roads. Just drives me mad. All they have to do when they get home is reverse into their drive, and they don't have to be being dangerous. That's all they have to do. Yet, okay. Enough of that. Now, the third one is a bit more what the vicar ought to think, but I'm afraid I have to confess to you, it's also to do with a little bit of irritation. And that's people who reject religion for stupid reasons. I don't mean reasons, I mean stupid reasons. Now, let's explore that in a little bit more detail. Now, the number one, and I do mean the number one reason people give me for rejecting religion is this. I don't believe in religion because religion causes wars. I don't believe in religion because religion causes wars. It makes my teeth grind because although I'm guessing that you've heard this argument already, and some of you may actually already think it, I'm afraid I can't bear it as a reason. And I'm not irritated because I want everybody to believe as I do. I'm irritated because it takes me no effort to undermine that argument. And let me explain to you, and let me show you how that's going to work. Now, having watched that wonderful play, I believe that you're likely to be a smart audience. And so I'm going to present to you an argument that uses exactly the same logic, but is obviously ridiculous. And what I need you to do is I need you to think about my argument I'm about to give, and in a few moments I'll give you an opportunity to chat together, and then you're going to have to tell me precisely why it's a poor argument. Are you ready to go with this? Right. What I'm going to prove to you is that I don't believe in science because science causes wars. Okay, you ready to go with me? So the way the logic works is this, and you've got to pick up the flaws. You've heard of a chap called Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler essentially started World War II. Adolf Hitler's beliefs were in the idea of a master race, that through struggle would float to the top and rule all the others. And not only that, he believed in inferior or evil races, and he believed that they ought to be destroyed. And so we have what is now in our historical experience, World War II and the Holocaust. Now, his ideas didn't actually come out of nowhere. In the first half of the 20th century, there was a very popular social science movement called eugenics. Now, eugenics was the idea that we could breed a better humanity, breed a superhuman, if you like, and we could breed out the worst traits. Now, that idea didn't come from nowhere. It was informed by the scientific work of Charles Darwin on the origin of species, where the idea of struggle and adaptation are what creates species that are better and better adapted to their environment. So, by that logic, I can tell you that science created eugenics, eugenics created Hitler, and Hitler created war. Therefore, science is evil because it causes war, and so I don't believe in it. Right. You've got about 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute, to discuss that with your neighbour, and 1 or 2 people are going to tell me why that is flawed and what the problem is. Right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're silent again. Right now, who here is going to stand up and tell me exactly why my belief is foolish? Come on then, my friend, stand up, please. Tell us.
I don't believe in what you said because it's the people who cause this. You can't really say that science causes war. It's the people who use it wrongly.
Thank you. Well done. Well, I'm good. Yeah, thank you. I think that deserves a round of applause. I could go round this room and I suspect that it would be at least 40, 50 people could stand up and say exactly the same thing. Was that about where you got to? Is there anything you would add to that? Sir, you have to stand up, I'm afraid. So, let's do this. It's people causes war, and you said I had a conclusion and I found evidence to support my conclusion. A genius in the midst. Thank you very much. Do sit down. Sir. Okay. Thank you. So I'll try and summarise that. That's actually basically people argue because they have beliefs one way or the other, and they interpret their own way. And I think that connects with your view, so that we tend to believe things we want to. Now, I'd like to... I think perhaps next year you ought to invite one of the students up here to speak. The wonderful thing that you've done is you've exactly captured exactly what's wrong with that argument. The problem is people. The problem is people choose what to believe and then find the evidence they want to reinforce their belief. And in doing that, they get into fights because they don't want to change what they believe. Now, the psychological term for that is actually confirmation bias. And so when you move on and do A-levels, perhaps at degree-level studies, you may do psychology, and what you'll realise is how extraordinarily foolish humanity can be. Now, I think, from listening to you, that you're not that daft, and you do have enough self-awareness to avoid that kind of stupid, and therefore, you don't annoy me. That's wonderful, well done, that's a good outcome. But that doesn't mean, does it, that any of you think that religion has any relevance to you right here, right now. You see, if I ask the question, what has religion ever done for me? The answer is rather easy. You can as you have done in that play that you just did, you can point at the school you go to. You can look at the development of hospitals. You can look at the work of charities that were set up by faithful people. You can point to the ending of the slave trade in European commerce. You can look at the development of law. And you can say, yes, that's what religion's done for me. But if I were you, and if I were you right here, right now, I'd be thinking, so what? I'd be thinking, well, what's that got to do with my future? What's that got to do with the world I inherit and with the life I'm going to live? Now, of course, my job is to consider what religion can do for you right here, right now. And so, we're going to have a pop quiz moment. When I say right here, right now, who am I quoting? This is really easy. Who? Ah, yes, I am quoting Fatboy Slim. We'll get onto him in a moment. Who did Fatboy Slim sample in a recent concert, saying right here, right now? Who's the swat at the back? Greta Thunberg. Have you heard of Greta Thunberg?
Yes.
Right. I'm going to embarrass the adults, if I may, for a few moments. Can any of you tell me what Fatboy Slim's actual name is? Right, could the swat at the back please stop talking? Mrs. Belbin. Norman Cook, thank you. There are other students in this room, sir. So, Norman Cook, yes. Can anybody tell me what band he was in before he was Fatboy Slim? Oh, we've got the House Martins down here somewhere. Well done. I'm just helping the adults be engaged, if you'll bear with me. Right, can any of you remember what was the name of the last ever album, the best of album, by the House Martins?
Now that's what I call quite good.
Oh. Now that's what I call quite good. Thank you very much. This has absolutely no bearing on my address. I just thought it was rather interesting. Now then, right, okay. So Miss Thunberg, Greta Thunberg, she's about your age. She's stomping all over the international scene at the moment. And I think if anybody's caught the spirit of the moment, it's Miss Thunberg, isn't it? So bearing in mind you are listening to her, you are concerned about what she's got to say, and you quite possibly are angry at the older generations that have created the world you live in and will live in, I thought I'd better talk to you about what religion can do for you right here, right now, and in the next 20, 30 or 50 years. Because the reality is, students, in 30 years' time, it'll be your fault. And Greta Thunberg's children will be looking at you angrily and saying, "What have you done?" So I'd like to illustrate what religion can contribute to climate change problems by referencing two religions, one Buddhist and one Christian. Now, I'm a fan of a Buddhist philosopher and economist. Economist. Is that the right word, sir? Yes, thank you. By the name of E.L. Schumacher. And he's written a collection of essays called Small is Beautiful. And in one of those essays, he talks about Buddhist economics. And I'm going to illustrate it with a potato. Right. Mr. Crawford, how much, not the swat at the back. Mr. Crawford, how much do you think this potato would cost?
Oh, 20 pence.
20 pence. Right, okay. Thinking in your... Right, I'm going to ask you just the questions, because the guy at the back... a bit annoying, really. So, what are the... what would you describe the processes, the costs that create that... the process that creates the cost? What is it?
So it has to be sown in a field.
Yep.
It's going to be, it's going to have some sort of fertiliser and put on top of it, and after being watered, perhaps if it's going to be inside glass houses, then it's going to be harvested and then taken to a distribution place, at which point it's going to be packaged.
Yep. You can stop now, yeah. Okay. That's too much, you know. So this potato is worth 20 pence, but you meant all that production process that's behind it, sowing, harvesting, delivery, it's worth quite a lot. Now then, let's ask a question. If this is the only potato in the world, what is it worth? You can answer that, Tristan.
A lot.
A lot. Oh, come on, you can do better than that.
It's priceless.
It's essentially priceless if you can't replace it. So, Yale Schumacher talks about value and economics, not just in terms of what it costs to produce, distribute and consume something, but he talks about replaceability. If we can't replace the thing we produce or sell, then the actual value of the thing is that it's priceless. Now, you know already, don't you, that that applies to species, environments, views in the countryside. So there's something that I'd suggest religion has got to say to you right here, right now. But what's interesting to me is they've been saying that for thousands of years. Thousands of years. That's not a new thought. That's not fresh. It seems to me the issue is not that religion hasn't had something to say about it, it's that we haven't chosen to listen to it. So what about Christianity? Well, in the founding mythology of the Christian faith is the idea that God created the world, that it was very good, and then she passed it over to humanity to tend and care for it. Tend and care. Care. At the heart of my faith is this understanding that the world is not here to be used as if it's mine, but to be cared for as if it's not. So what's religion got to do with you right here, right now? Or for the next 20, 30 or 50 years, when the problems of the world stop being someone else's fault and start being yours? I'd like to suggest everything. I'd say it has everything to say to us because religion moves us beyond the cost of things to the value of everything. It moves us from thinking we own anything to knowing we belong to everyone. So, what do I get out of this? Well, let's go back to room 101, shall we? So number 3, we fixed that because now you are already a good bunch of people who think straight and think clearly. Well done. You don't irritate me. Number 2, you're going to be the business people, the researchers and politicians. And you won't be reversing into driveways, will you? Because what will happen is you'll develop self-driving electric cars with autonomous gadgets and an app on your phone so that the car arrives at your house. So there'll be no need for driveways or reversing out, so you won't irritate me there. And this feels like an if we successfully resolve climate change, then you lads won't have to walk the streets in just your shorts anymore. You'll keep your shirt on, won't you? My thanks for listening and thank you for the opportunity to speak.